Welcome back. And it's not often you associate British hard rock and heavy metal with the royal family, but with the passing of Black Sabbath legend Ozzy Osbourne, the Coldstream Guards gave a nod to the old master in their own style. Joining me now is writer and broadcaster Esther Krakue. Esther, obviously the passing of Ozzy Osbourne made international headlines. I actually think it's really great to see the King's Household Regiment mark the occasion. They're worlds apart, but I feel like it's one of those great relatability pieces that the royal family does so well.
Yes, I think the royal family for millennia has realized that one of the ways to stay relevant is to stay relevant and to know what's most people can identify with. I remember a few years ago when the royal family entertained the president of South Korea and gave awards. They invited Blackpink, which is a massive K-pop group, and I was quite surprised by that because at the time I was thinking, wow, does the royal family actually know who Blackpink was? They probably don't listen to K-pop or their music, but it's the point that staying relevant and knowing what's popular and knowing what normal people relate to is what people identify with the royal family. It's not just having sort of this distant monarchy that people don't really connect with. And that was actually, unfortunately, the downfall of many European royal families. The fact that for many centuries, people didn't actually see them. They couldn't even identify physically what the royal houses looked like. But thankfully, the royal family learned that lesson really prior to World War I and realized that that was actually one of the things that would sustain them. And it's carried through to this day. They played Paranoid by Black Sabbath upon the passing of Ozzy Osbourne. And I know this as someone who has worked with Sharon Osbourne before. It was a terrible blow and it was such a huge loss, and the family are really devastated and reeling. And most of the country is as well. I mean, this is probably the finest thing to come out of Birmingham in ever. So for the royal family to pay tribute to that was really, I mean, this is probably what they do best. Understanding the mood of the nation and really going through the country through the various phases of its life, of its history.
And speaking of the King and Queen being out and about, and they're still in Scotland, and they've had the week attending, obviously, the Highland Games. The photos and footage have been amazing. It's always a must in the calendar. What were the highlights for you?
Definitely the tug of war with those men wearing tartans. And kilts, they're tartan kilts, and you're just concerned that nothing blows in the wind and somehow makes it onto the front page of the Daily Mail. But, this has always been a staple in the King's calendar since he was made chieftain of the Games in 2002. The Games have been going on since 1970 to pay tribute to the then Queen Mother. So, the King is always at these Games, which are held in Caithness, when he's up in Scotland in the summer, and this is no different. I think probably the most iconic image when you think of the Highland Games is actually the tug of war of these really strong men with these very, very strong, thick quads, trying to see who will win, and the King always looking very amused. The King was also wearing his kilt, his kilt in the Balmoral tartan, which is obviously exclusive to the royal family, and only members of the royal family can actually wear it. So it's a big sense of British tradition that the King gladly maintains and keeps up.
Now, also this week, and we saw the new state portraits being hung in the throne room. We've got a video of it. Check this out.
Today, the two new state portraits are being hung in the throne room at Buckingham Palace. State portraits are typically grand, full-length portraits that become the defining image of the new monarch. The portrait of King Charles III was painted by Peter Kuhfeld, and Paul S. Benny completed the portrait of Queen Camilla. The King is shown in military dress, but wearing the red robe of state, which is worn at the beginning of the coronation ceremony. And you can see the imperial state crown set on a table to one side, just as we see in the portrait of George III. Queen Camilla wears her coronation dress, which was made by Bruce Oldfield, and it includes embroidered flowers representing the national flowers of Britain, but also her two rescue dogs, Bluebell and Belle.
Now, Esther, this might be the slightly less relatable side of the royal family, but a beautiful mark of tradition. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so this is being hung up in anticipation of sort of the new round of tours that Buckingham Palace does, which usually starts in the summer. I have a friend who's been on those tours. They're not cheap, but they're definitely worth every penny. And this is obviously marking the new monarch. This is actually one of the more flattering portraits I've seen of the king and queen, particularly of the king. I don't know if you remember a portrait from a couple of years ago where the background was all in red, and people were saying that the king, like basically he was a priest performing an exorcism. Thankfully, they went for something more traditional and more flattering, and you know, tourists will not be scared off basically by seeing the king coming out and sort of a sea of red behind him. And yes, it's the less relatable parts of it, but it is important. And when you've actually been on these tour experiences, you can see how it fits into the whole decor, and really gives you an understanding of the royal family and basically their place in British society.
Yeah, and they do look stunning, one has to admit, regardless of how relatable or not relatable they may be. Now, onto something, again, back to relatable and football. Prince William and Princess Charlotte were in Zurich last Saturday for the Lionesses' win in the Women's Euro finals. How was that all received in the UK?
It was actually, it went down really, really well. I mean, the Lionesses winning was obviously a huge moment to celebrate. I'm not a massive football fan, but the pictures that came out of Princess Charlotte clearly enjoying herself was wonderful. I mean, one of the things that the Lionesses have been credited with doing so well is putting female football on the map and getting a lot of young girls in this country interested. I was actually quite surprised to see Princess Charlotte there because there was no news from the palace that she would actually be attending. So it was wonderful seeing this young, really poised young lady enjoying herself, really getting into it. And we know that Prince William is a massive fan and actually a very good football pundit from what we saw with his punditry over the game with PSG a few months ago. So this is clearly something that they're using to bond, but it's also showing how important and how far the sport has come with women's football in this country, and how it's inspired many young girls to actually get into the sport.
Now, on to the Princess Royal's son, Peter Phillips. Well, he and Harriet Sperling, they announced their engagement this week. What do we know?
So we don't know too much other than the couple have been together. They've been dating for a year, so, you know, not too long. But this basically royal announcement has come. He is the son of the Princess Royal, and they haven't set a wedding date just yet. But I don't think it's going to be such a lavish event like we usually see with royal weddings. They seem to be quite a low-key couple. They seem to know what they want, and they've got engaged pretty quickly after only a year of dating. And, you know, the royal family seem to be quite happy with it. The Prince and Princess of Wales have sent their congratulations, and we'll probably just wait. I suspect they'll probably have a very small ceremony, very low-key, especially because we don't actually have any date for the wedding set yet. So it's something that seems like it was quite in the spur of the moment. But I'm sure the Princess Royal, who's easily one of the hardest working royals, will be happy, and I think she should have a well-deserved break by enjoying whatever occasion they have to celebrate this.
And I feel the media around Harriet has been so positive. She's really set herself up well in the sense of a style icon. I think she's done a fabulous job and trotting out the odd Aspinall handbag, which is something I always appreciate. Now on to something vastly different. Can you tell us about the King's new range of dog products?
Yes, dog treats. It's really interesting. The royal household has decided to release these £5, I believe, dog treats, which are like sort of these beige little biscuits. And I always found them very strange because sometimes you go to like some dental practices and you see, or restaurants, and you see them leave out little dog treats and bowls. But actually, again, this is one of the things that the royal family does, really connecting with people. Establishments that have dog treats and bowls of water where pets are welcome actually go down very well with the community. Now, they're not overpriced. They're just really cute dog biscuits in the shape of a bone. And I'm sure all of the proceeds are likely to go to some sort of charitable causes or things that are close to the King's heart. But these are the kinds of things that tend to go down well because this is very targeted marketing for people that kind of like these things, which actually ends up being a huge part of the British population. I think 1 in 2 households have some sort of pet. So if you think about that, out of 67 million people, that's not an insignificant number. So we'll just have to see how they'll do, but it's probably they're going to do the same as many other products that have been released by the royal household. And for dedicated fans of the royal family, they'll certainly get into it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And lastly, a major announcement for Prince William's homelessness project. He's pouring a lot of energy into this. I've got about 30 seconds left. What's the latest?
So the one of the properties that is owned by Prince William through the Duchy of Cornwall is actually going to be made available and turned into flats, 16 flats for young homeless people between the ages of 18 to 25. Now, the property is going to be in South London, but I think the overall message is the Prince is really serious about this, and he's putting his money where his mouth is. And whatever you think about the Prince William or his wealth or the wealth of the royal family, which frequently comes up in conversation, he is really serious about tackling homelessness, or at least putting it on the map in terms of public discussion here in Britain. And it's great to see him do. It's not an easy feat at all. And he's been facing a lot of criticism since he launched this initiative. But he really seems to be putting his money where his mouth is.
And that's all that we can ask for, frankly. Thank you so much, Esther Krakue.